Sword of Omens, give me sight beyond sight to see what the coolest Thundercats action figures were in the 1980s. So, stick around. Welcome, fellow dorks and dorkettes, to Nostalgia Syndrome. My name's Rob, and in this episode, I'm going to be giving what I think are the best Thundercats action figures. We're looking at the LJN line from the 1980s. Just a quick rundown. Thundercats follows the adventures of a group of refugee feline aliens that crash land on a planet called Third Earth. While on Third Earth, they are trying to set up a new way of life while also battling their mortal enemies, the Mutants, who followed them from outer space. The first episode aired in syndication on January 23rd, 1985. Produced by Rankin and Bass, Thundercats is now owned by Warner Brothers, so unfortunately I won't be able to show any footage or any of that sweet theme song, which is one of the best from the 80s. Anyway, the show aired for 4 seasons and wrapped up in 1989, netting 130 episodes. In that time period, LJN produced, and now let me get this right, so I'm going to be reading this, because it's a lot. They produced 2 different playsets, 4 things called laser sabers that kind of utilized the same technology that the Brave Star toys used, 2 Rampagers, 7 vehicles, 1 sword, 4 Berserker characters, 7 companion characters, 2 creatures, 2 deluxe figures, 11 mutant villains, and 10 heroes. Now, within that, there were a lot of re-releases that would come with different bits and baubles. One of those being the Wily Cats and Snarf and Mumra's Mom Mutt. Those also got later releases on their own, so chock full of so many different action figures and accessories. It was a great addition to 80s toy collecting. Most of the action figures tied directly to the show, which made you feel like you were part of the action week to week, as you could watch an episode and then play with the action figures. Not all the characters were ever released, and there's actually one character that was created just for the toys that we never saw in the cartoon. But we'll be getting to that on this list because it's a pretty sweet toy. So let me begin by saying this is just my opinion. I mean, I'm sure everyone has their own opinions, their own nostalgia-driven lists. And I have to be honest, I didn't have that many Thundercats toys. I mean, I didn't have many toys at all, unfortunately. So a lot of the ones I'm picking on the list are ones that I view now with an adult's eyes that I just think look so awesome. So without further ado, let's get to the list. Number 1 on the list is Rattero. This Commander of the Mutants is by far a very cool looking action figure. He looks very much like he did in the cartoon, and he even came with his awesome size. Now with those, I remember that he would put them together and shoot laser blasts out of the little eyes that are on it. What is with swords and eyes with this show? Anyway, he only made a couple appearances on the cartoon, and both times he got whooped and he went his own way, leaving his mutants to fend for themselves. He was released in the second wave of toys, and he had the Battle-matic action. That little lever on the back would make his arms go up and down. Like most of the figures on this list, he had 5 points of articulation: his arms, his legs, and his head. One of the coolest features that this figure had was it had a posable tail. I always loved that little extra mile that action figures take. A lot of toy companies would have gotten away with just painting a tail on the back or down the leg or something, but LJN went the extra mile and gave us a posable tail. So I guess that's 6 points of articulation if you count the tail. Number 2 on the list is Top Spinner. He was a member of the Berserkers, and the Berserker toys actually look like a subset. They came in different packaging, and they were big, bulky figures. Well, most of them. This one is probably one of the biggest and bulkiest. And he came with an action feature where he would spin around super fast and swing his mace and have his shield at the ready. The Berserkers were a group that weren't associated with the mutants that came to Third Earth to pillage and plunder. They were very much like Vikings and took a big inspiration with their armor and just their way of life. All the Berserkers, like I said, came in their own packaging, and they all had action features. I unfortunately don't remember that much about them in the cartoon, because by then I wasn't watching as much as I used to. I remember them in the Lunatanks. The Lunatanks never did get any toys, but they were a creepy and weird group that probably would have had some really neat action figures. Not to spoil anything, but there's a couple Berserkers on this list because they kind of went all out with the toys and their action features. Number 3 on the list is the Intergalactic Police Force's most wanted criminal, Captain Cracker. As a kid, I probably would have passed on this space pirate, but as an adult, I see how cool he really is. He is awesomely sculpted, and he comes with a peg leg. Now, there's just something cool about the broken up symmetry of action figures that I really like. So, the peg leg, I'm sure was a pain to pose, get him to stand up properly, but it just looks really cool. Now, like I said, he was a space pirate, so he would travel from planet to planet, doing pirate things, robbing, stealing, pillaging, all that fun stuff. You would have thought that he would have been a cool fit for the Berserkers, but actually he teamed up with the Lunatanks at one time. The figure came with his cutlass, but was missing one of the best things that it could have come with, his bird, Polly. He came with a robotic parrot that did all the cliche things that a robotic parrot would do. Spouting different pirate phrases and all that kind of stuff. But he looked cool, and it would have made a great little action figure to go with him. Number 4 on the list is the Thundercats' resident tech head, vehicle driver, and ninja. And yes, I say he's a ninja. I put him on my Cartoon Ninjas episode from a while ago. And because he has tabby boots and nunchucks. But anyway, it's Panthro. Panthro was the coolest character around. He was tough. He was awesome. I mean, he drove the Thunder Tank. He had nunchucks that would shoot stuff out of him. Just awesome. If only the toys would have been more articulated, that you could get a lot of the martial arts action out of them. But he came with the Battle-matic feature where you squeeze the back, the little trigger, and he'd do this with his nunchucks. And they had the tabby boots molded in, so that was cool. But they could have done so much more. And did I say this list isn't in any particular order? Because it's not. Because Panthro probably should be higher on the list, but the toy kind of was a letdown from where your imagination would take you. Now, number 5 on the list is a twofer. It's Lionel and Mumra, and I added them both because of their awesome action feature of light up eyes. Both figures came with these little, I guess they were supposed to be rings that were about yay big and had a little metal connector on the end, and you put a battery in the middle of it. Both figures had a little metal disc on their backs that when you pressed the little standoff metal nub into them, their eyes would light up. I remember getting the Lionel figure before the cartoon even aired, and I was just enthralled with this feature. It was so awesome. I'd never seen anything like it before. I never had Mumra, but he had the exact same feature, and he came with an awesome scimitar. Now, Lionel came with the Sword of Omens, but that scimitar was pretty awesome. And he had a removable helmet. That's always a bonus in my book. Number 6 on the list is another Berserker figure, and that is Hammerhand. There's something so awesome about how this figure was sculpted. It has the same haunched appearance that he had in the cartoon. And his huge robotic arm. I mean, huge enough that it could fit around the waist of one of your Thundercats figures and lift them up and menace them. And by menace, I mean squeeze the ever-loving life out of them. Like the other Berserker figures, Hammerhand came on a card that did not resemble any of the other Thundercats toys. And sadly, he came with 0 accessories. All he had was his huge robotic arm, which is cool enough, but he should have had a sword or something to go along with it. Number 7 on the list is another group of action figures that I probably would have left on the shelves as a kid because they annoyed me. But that is the Burbles. This was Thundercats' answer to the Ewoks, these little robotic bears. There were 3 released. They were Bill, Bert, and Belle. The reason that I add them to the list now is because they're really great sculpting. And they're littler than the normal figures, but they just look so great. It's a great contrast between their sculpting of the fur and the robotics that really works with this action figure. Oh, and the reason that you can tell Belle is a girl is because she has a flower in her hair. Simple and effective and cool. Number 8 on the list is the Snowman of Hook Mountain. This comrade of the Thundercats was an awesome character and an awesome toy. He came with a removable helmet, a javelin, and a shield. Now, he has a javelin because he rode a large white saber-toothed tiger called Snow Meowth. Now, if only they made a figure of Snow Meowth. That would have fit perfectly next to your He-Man and Battle Cat. Would have been awesome. They did release one in the little PVC figures, but they should have released a big one. Anyway, Snowman was a great action figure and a great character. The sculpting on his face is top-notch. His accessories are great. Like I said, I'm a sucker for a removable helmet. And like I said, he's just a great character. He's someone that you want with your Thundercats while you're playing. Unfortunately, I never had him. And so far on this list, the only 2 that I've had are Panthro and Lionel. But I would have loved to have him. I had a buddy that had one, and I loved playing with it. Number 9 cashed in on the 80s love affair with Japanese culture, and that is Hatchy Man, the samurai. The only downfall to this figure was his pose. Unfortunately, unlike the other figures, he came posed with his hands together to put his sword in kind of a wide stance, which is cool, but you want some more posability than that. I mean, it's kind of hard for him just to walk around all the time like this, trying to talk to people and, yeah, it just doesn't work out. But anyway, another great character with a removable helmet. Like I said, I'm a sucker for it. Great character on the show. Oh, when he fought that ghost ninja. Top-notch episode. But anyway, this was another figure I didn't have, but my friend had this one, and Snowman. He had all the great ones. And it was fun to play with because he has a sideways chopping action feature. But other than that, you can't really do much with him. This was a figure that its action feature kind of ruined the figure itself. The only reason I'm adding him to the list is because he is awesome. He looks great. And I'm just a sucker for the character and his removable helmet. Number 10 on the list, I'm cheating big time, and that is all of the original mutants. I'm talking about Slithe the Lizard Man, Monkey Man, Vulture Man, and Jackal Man. All 4 of them were awesome. The only one I ever had was Slithe, and I think that is by far the best of the 4. But all 4 looked great. Great sculpting of their hair, or like Vulture Man, his scaly skin, wrinkly skin, whatever you want to say. It all looked great. And you can't have great hero characters without great villain characters. And these 4 were the OG villains of the show. Now, number 11 on the list is a character that didn't make that many appearances in the cartoon, but it was impressive enough that he got his own figure, and that is the Driller. The Driller was part of the subset of Rampagers. There were, as I said, only 2 of them released. But what made this figure so cool is his legs, or lack thereof. He had a drill bit, but a cool thing that they did was the drill bit would split into 3 like tripod legs that he could stand. Now, he never did that in the cartoon. He just continually spun so he could stand. On top of this really neat action feature, he just is greatly sculpted, like most of these figures. But he only has 3 points of articulation because of his lack of legs. Now, number 12 on the list never appeared on the cartoon, and that's the Stinger. This weird-looking bug humanoid. Oh, he had an action feature where you could push a little button on his abdomen to get his wings to flap. But what was really freaky was his head within a head. He had an insect head, but inside of the mouth of that you had a human-esque head. Creepy. Really nasty, gnarly looking, but makes for a great action figure. Now, like I said, he never appeared in the cartoon, so LJN just created this figure on their own just to be creepy, and they succeeded. Now, number 13 on the list, it's very fitting that it's 13, and that is Monger. Yeah, if Satan got an action figure, this would probably be it. This bipedal goat man with a flaming scythe was, awesome. He only appeared in one episode, but it was enough to make a really big impression. He was just downright evil, setting the world ablaze in his path with his flaming scythe. Super awesome, super cool. The figure could have been just a little bit better because it was posed for his action feature of the scythe. So he was out like this so he could hold it. Yeah, it can't really do much with that. Like I said with Hatchy Man, if you want these characters to interact, you kind of want them at a relaxed state so they could just chill with their homies, not always be ready for action. But, hey, other than that, it's a great figure, super creepy. Like I said, if, the Maryland Goat Man got an action figure, it would be this. If Satan got an action figure, it would be this. And right there, that's what makes him awesome. Anyway, this was just a quick list of 13 of the best Thundercats action figures, in my opinion. I love these figures. I have a few of them now today. I'm still looking for them at a reasonable price. And, great cartoon, great toys, just a huge part of our childhood. The cartoon aired every day after school, so I would rush home to watch it and be whisked away to Third Earth and the awesome stories. Right now, all the episodes, including the 2012 series, are airing on Hulu. So if you have Hulu, hey, take a trip back in time and watch some of these episodes. Now, some of them don't hold up. Some of the voices really grate on your nerves nowadays, but the awesomeness is still there. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you got something to say, please leave a comment. I love reading them, and I love getting back to everybody. And if you're new around here and you enjoyed this or any of the episodes that YouTube is recommending down here, please hit subscribe. And if you hit that little bell icon, you'll be notified whenever there's a new episode. So anyway, until next time, thanks for watching. Keep being rad and stay dorky.